Hello everyone, welcome to another Flesh and Blood video. In this one, we're taking a look at pretty much the class of the format in Runeblade. Sage is just Runeblade and like Oldhim, and honestly that's it. You can play other decks if you want, other decks are fine, but right now, if you're not playing Briar or Chain, you're probably playing like Oldhim or Ira, and other than those, maybe like Bravo or Azalea. But other than like those four that can compete with the Rune Blades, you're just not doing anything in this format. If you're playing against them, obviously you can go and you can say, "Don't give me this Rune Blade meta slop," and play some fun deck. Play like Tough Nut or play like KO or something. KO might be like heavy hitters. KO might be too good as well, but you get the point. Runeblade is just insane. I was having some trouble figuring out if I want to do Briar or Chain this week, since Sage being a 55 card format is a little hard to build because you get your core, and then once you have your core, you're like, okay, I need to add cards. And I'm looking through lists to see what I want to try. And I keep seeing like Bloodied Oval and Scepter. And I just don't think that's good. One list I saw wasn't even on Scepter, it was just on Oval. Which I guess, yes, some games you don't need to swing the weapon. Whatever. We'll see when we talk about the list. I'll explain why we're on everything. But we're going to start with Briar since I think it's the easier deck to play. It's literally 40 red cards. The versions with Scepter are on Yellow Nourish as the one card you're pitching to Scepter for when you bring in the Scepter, because Yellow Nourish is a +3, technically. So it's actually a good card. But we're not on it, so we're playing literally 44 red cards total, I think, because the rest of the deck's equipment. So with all that, let's get started with the review, starting with the hero. Briar's been around for a long time, but hasn't been sort of a meta contender for a while. She's not amazing in Living Legend, and she is, of course, Living Legend, so you haven't seen her as often in CC. I believe she's also LL and Blitz, but I might be wrong on that. Briar is a 4 intellect, 20 health elemental runeblade hero. She's from Tales of Aria, which means she has access to 2 elements, Essence of Earth and Lightning, which means you just can't play those ice cards in your deck. But mainly we're Lightning. We don't really care for the Earth. There's one really good Earth card in this deck from Rosetta that we do get to play, but other than that, it's your Lightning. She has 2 other abilities. The first time an attack action card you control deals damage to an opposing hero this turn. This includes Arcane, so cards like Arcanic Shockwave are pretty good. You make an Embodiment of Earth. Embodiment of Earths are, which you might know that from CC, are tokens that make non-attack actions block for 1 extra. The second time you play a non-attack action card each turn, you make an Embodiment of Lightning token, which is your next attack action gains go again, and then you destroy. It's like a Quicken, but it doesn't work for weapons. The idea of Briar is to play 2 non-attacks, then play a really big attack, and then play another attack after. Of course, that will change from turn to turn. Sometimes you'll have, a Lightning Surge in your arsenal, and you'll go Lightning Surge into, like, a 1 pump Captain's Call into, like, a Rabble for 4, and then you'll Arsenal a card, and then your next turn you'll go Burn Up Shock from Arsenal into, Nimblism, get the go again, go Arcanic Shockwave, fusing, and then whatever else. Or you'll go, like, Flying High into, let's say, like, Snatch, and then you'll go, I don't know, Nimblism into, like, a Scar for a Scar that you needed the embodiment to get go again, because the Nimblism would be the second non-attack action, and then you, like, break chest, swing Reaping Blade. Something like that is how you're going to take every turn. Pretty much you care more about that second ability than you do the first ability, but the first ability is still really good. because this is a very fast format, you needing to be on defense sometimes is perfectly fine. You have a lot of non-attacks that actually do block 3. Arcane Seed's Life, Burn Up Shock. It's just Arcane Seed's Life, Burn Up Shock, but making the rest of your 2 blocks block for 3 is really, really good. Because generally you want to be keeping the attacks in your hand more than non-attacks, but do still keep some non-attacks so you can actually convert your full hand. For the weapon and equipment, we are mainboarding Reaping Blade. We do have Starfall in the inventory. We'll talk about that later. Reaping Blade is a 1 for 3 that if a hero has more life than the other hero, they can't gain life. We only have 2 cards in our deck that do gain us life, being Arcane Seed's Life. So if we play it turn 1 or turn 0 to make 2 rune chance, we can still gain that life, which is perfectly fine. This is mainly here because it's a 1 for 3 though. None of the other Runeblade weapons do that. Rosetta Thorn is definitely banned in this format. So we're just playing the Reaping Blade. For the rest of our equipment, we are on Blade Beckoner, Helm, and Boot. We are on more Blade Beckoner in the inventory and replacements in the inventory as well. We'll talk about those later. These are going to be the main ones that are going to come in because they just give us extra health. That's really all it is. We are an aggro deck. This is really good armor. I honestly wish these were banned because these are just the generic piece. If you don't have a piece of equipment in this slot, you put this there. For gloves, we have the Braces of Belief because our whole deck is red. Even if you were on the Nourish with Scepter, you would still be on Braces of Belief because even a +1 to a card like Snatch is crazy. A lot of decks really rely on their armor to block breakpoints, so when you say, okay, my Snatch gets +2 and it comes in for 6, suddenly them having to put 2 cards from their hand in front of it, especially when a lot of the aggro decks in the format aren't all 3 blocks, they just take damage, and it's free damage, it's free 2 damage because the whole deck is red. Really, really strong. And then for our chess piece, we are playing Garland of Spring. This can be Blossom of Spring. I've seen Bodice in Briar, but I don't think there's enough aura generation and something like Chain, which we'll look at next week. There's enough to play Bodice, and it's actually better because you play cards like Arcane Cussing. But Garland of Spring is going to be in the deck. Notably, every card in this deck is 0 cost. The reason we are on this resource-generating chess piece is so we can have a turn to swing our weapon. Because it generates the 1, we can use it to swing the Reaping Blade. We can use it to swing the Starfall as well. So either weapon swing, really nice. If you wanted to, you could play a more blocking chess piece. Again, we'll talk about that. Oh, we have a ton of equipment in our inventory. Moving on to the main board, we have a 38-card main board because we're only ever adding in 1 playset in our sideboarding, and it's just going to be our 1 defensive card. We'll talk about those later. But for our aggro, we got 38 red cards to talk about. So let's talk about them, starting with the non-attacks. I think these are the most important part of the deck as they offer you a lot more value. Not damage-wise, but these are your utility. Every attack in this deck is a 0 for 4 plus something. Either it be go again or extra arcane damage. But these are what makes your deck tick. Starting with Arcane Seed's Life, this is the 1 card from Rosetta I was talking about. It has you make 2 rune chance and on Arcane Seeds and gain a life on life. Mainly, this is just 2 arcane damage. You can really think about it like that, but it is 3 life as a non-attack action that is arcane. Not a lot of people will bring 2 of its arcane. Not a lot of people will bring Arcane Barrier against Briar. So a lot of Briar lists have been switching to a lot more arcane damage with these single shots. They've went down on some, like I think Arcanic Crackle was the main one that a lot of people are going down now. But they're still playing cards like Arcanic Shockwave, like Static Shock that do this arcane damage. Arcane Seed's Life making you 2 rune chance can just help you end the game, as well as something like Malefic Incantation. Very, very powerful. Burn Up Shock, probably the best card. Probably, I think this card is the most deserving to be banned. If they want to hit something in Briar without straight up banning Briar, I think this is the card. It is not only a non-attack action for Briar, it is the next time any attack you control hits, which means on a turn you're actually swinging your weapon. This is the turn you want to be popping your weapon, by the way, so if you haven't converted the Burn Up yet, because it can proc it. It also is 1 arcane because of the shocks. You're always getting 1 value off of it. It also blocks 3. It's a lightning card for all of your Lightning flow effects. It's a lightning card for your fusions. If you had to block in your hands Arcanic Shockwave, Burn Up Shock, you can send Arcanic Shockwave, fuse Burn Up Shock, and then arsenal it, and your opponent knows they're just dead next turn because you have a 5-card hand with a Burn Up Shock. So this card's crazy. The Captain's Call red gives our next attack of cost, our next attack with cost 2 or less +2, or it gives it go again. We're on the red just because it's a red, so it doesn't interact with any of our other things. And the +2 is still really nice. We could play some other pump instead of this, but I think Captain's Call is just perfect. And we do have another weaker pump in the deck that does sort of both of these, and we'll talk about that one actually next, and that's Flying High. Flying High is from High Seas. It gives your next attack go again, and if it's red, shocker, our whole deck's red, +1. This card is generally the card you won't see in lists. Most people will replace this one with Yellow Nourish. Yellow Nourish gives your next attack with power greater than its base plus, or the next time it attacks in power would increase that number by 3. So if we get +1, it would get +4 instead. That one's really strong because it's not only a yellow for when you draw Scepter, but it is a yellow for like paying for Frostbites if you have to play against Ice, which Ice isn't real in this format right now. Really, it's just Oldhim, and so sure if you play against Oldhim, but Oldhim has a good matchup into you anyway because he's so defensive. But Flying High can help you just be a little more aggro. It does up the break points, like I said earlier. You can throw this into a Snatch, and a Snatch for 5 is a lot harder to block than a Snatch for 4 in this format. So I really do like Flying High, but if you were going to be on Scepter, I would cut the Flying High for the Nourish. This is a non-attack action, but 2 copies of Lightning Press just because it's a free +3. I have died at 10 to Burn Up Shock, double Lightning Press. So I think you should play Lightning Press. Malefic Incantation is sort of what I said about Arcane Seed's life earlier, where it's just 3 arcane damage that a lot of people don't play AB into Briar because they just want to block the breakpoints because a lot of on hits, but they will just die to arcane damage. So Malefic Incantation is really good. And even if, they have to AB, they're using a card in their hand to AB. So they're still going -1 card to block 1 arcane when you need to, and you're just killing them. Because they spent a card in their hand for 1 arcane, that's 3 block gone, now that's 3 less block they spent on 1 damage. So really powerful card. 3 Nimblism, the whole deck's 0. Play the Nimblism. Pretty simple. 2 Sizzle. I think I might have said 3 copies for something earlier. 2 Sizzle. Lightning Elemental attacks get +3. We're already on Weave Lightning. Notably, Sizzle can pump your Starfall, where Weave Lightning can't, but who cares? Half of the attacks in your deck, or I guess a little more than half of the attacks in your deck, are Lightning or Elemental. This pumps most of them. Same as Weave Lightning, it pumps most of them. The one thing that does fuse in the deck already gets go again if you fuse it, so that doesn't matter. It's just a 0 for 3, non-attack action. Moving on to the attacks, we play some pretty good ones, I guess. Arcanic Shockwave is 0 for 4. If we fuse it, we do 1 arcane to target hero. This can hit our opponent to make that embodiment because it's the Arcane Shockwave doing the damage, which means if we need to be more defensive, this can be a great way to get it. Also, it's technically a 0 for 5, which makes this card really, really powerful. And we're probably going to arsenal that lightning card we fuse anyway. If we show our opponent a non-attack action, we just get to arsenal it. If we show them a lightning surge, that's a card we want to arsenal. Pretty much every lightning card in the deck, we are fine arsenaling if we throw Arcanic Shockwave with no go again and still have another card in our hand. So really, really strong. Also, we can just show them Lightning Press and then make them not have a good day. 3 copies of Entwined Lightning, or 2. Max copies of Entwined Lightning. This is just 0 for 4 go again. Again, we're fusing, but I mean, we can play the card we fuse with after, so it doesn't really matter. 2 Fluttering Charge. Again, this is 0 for 4. It can get go again off Lightning Press and off of stuff like Shock, I guess, but it's a 0 for 4 that sometimes has go again. That's why it's here, and it's a lightning card. There's not many lightning 0 for 4s, but this one is still fine, even though it doesn't have go again most of the time, like it would in Aurora or Cilia or something like that. 2 Lightning Surge. This card's getting arsenaled every time you draw it. It's the best card to fuse with because it's a card you always want to arsenal. That's about it. You can play it raw if you don't have a Chain Ender, but it's still good. You want to start with it, though. 2 Rabble. You're playing 40 red cards. Why are we not playing Rabble? 2 Scar. We're an aggro deck. It's a 0-4 go again. We can take a hit and then swing back. This card's just really good. It's a good starter a lot of the time because we'll be lower life in the aggro mirrors a lot, and in the slower matchups, we can just play this card as a card to gain go again off of our embodiment lightning token. 2 second strike. This deck is damage, so you should land damage. You have a lot of arcane. You have, if you're playing against a matchup that it is harder to deal damage against, we do play Mark of Lightning in our inventory. So even if it's a matchup that can easily block the second strike, Mark of Lightning can help you get the damage to get the pump in to go again. 2 copies of Skizik, just because, again, it's a 0-4. If it has go again, best thing to use the embodiment on is this card because it actually gets its value. It's also a 3 block. Not a lot of cards in this deck block 3. It does kind of matter. Snatch is the best on hit in the entire format. Honestly, again, this card should be banned because it is the strongest on hit in the format. Getting an arsenal in such a fast format is so powerful. You just don't get it so often because you're playing an aggro game. You want to convert your whole hand. Snatch just giving you a free arsenal, giving you a 5-card hand next turn, or it's a must block is just such a good card. And then finally, Static Shock, just because it's extra arcane if it actually just does hit. And you're probably playing a lightning card in your turn. So it's just 0-5 again. It's pretty powerful. Moving on to the inventory. Starting with not the equipment, because it's easier to explain than not equipment. Sigil of Suffering is the card we're bringing in versus most of our matchups. This is arcane damage on their turn. You kill them. If Reinforce the Line or Arcane Polarity are not cards you want to bring in, you're bringing in Sigil of Suffering. Versus Wizard mainly, you're going to be bringing in Arcane Polarity. This is just 4 life back. Most matchups against a Runeblade, you can bring in the Sigil because it's threatening them damage. But if they're a deck that easily overpitches, you can consider the Arcane Polarity instead. Because if they overpitch, the Sigil of Suffering doesn't really do anything. It's just better to gain the 4 life guaranteed with Polarity. Although do be careful if you are on Reaping Blade because you can block your own Polarity. Just make sure you do it when you're at lower life. And then to reinforce the line, this is going to come in versus the decks that have a lot of Dominate. Bravo can overpitch and block your Sigil of Suffering, as well as Azalea, even though she's a lot of red line, has an AB1 in Bullseye Bracers. So it's not really the best to place Sigil of Suffering into them. You're going to want to play Reinforced Line instead because it's guaranteed 4 block. And it can help you block those Dominate attacks. Even if you don't have an arsenal, you could block the 3 block. Say your Skizik and the Reinforced, block 7 and get a lot of value. So against the Dominate decks, you're going to want to bring in Reinforce the Line. Now, let's talk about our equipment. Starfall is going to be coming in versus decks that we want to go wider. Mainly, these are going to be the slower decks. Stuff like Guardian, all that stuff. Stuff like Guardian, stuff like Tough Nut, I've seen a bit in this format. Any of the slow decks, you're going to want to bring in Starfall. Starfall is really powerful because it actually gets the go again. This can be a mid-turn thing. Mainly, like I said, you're using your Garland with your weapon on turns you play Burn Up Shock, which means this is going to be on. You can throw you can play the Burn Up Shock, throw an attack, throw the Starfall, and then do whatever else, and you'll most likely hit because you're throwing 2 breakpoints plus a 2 power attack, so they're spending at least that's 5 cards in hand or 4 cards in equipment, and then you just skip their turn, and that's fine for you. So you're going to bring in Starfall versus those slow decks. Versus a deck that's really good at blocking you, you're going to want to bring in the Mark of Lightning. This is because any deck that's really good at blocking you is just going to block the Bracers. They're going to save their cards to block the 6 anyway. They don't really care. Mainly a deck like Oldhim, because Oldhim can just go, okay, you pop Bracers or Belief, I have 2-3 blocks. Or, okay, you pop Bracers or Belief, well, I've been using my hero ability all game, so I still have my armor. So mainly it's going to be just bring in the Mark of Lightning so you can convert your second strikes easier in that matchup. For the Blade Beckoner plating, this is going to be in any matchup. We're just not swinging our weapon. This is any matchup. We just got to kill them. Of course, swinging the weapon is more value than the Blade Beckoner plating, but anything with a lot of on-hits, something like Ira, something like the Mirror, Blade Beckoner plating is pretty good. Maybe not if they go for Starfall, because you can be a little more defensive in the matchup, but if they are going for the Reaping Blade in the Mirror, you can have 3 block on your chest head glove or chest head leg, and then when they swing the reaping blade for the garland turn, you just block the 3 and you fully cover the reaping blade. So versus stuff like the mirror, versus stuff like Ira, you can consider the blade beckoner plating just for that extra health against their weapons. Anything else that just has those powerful weapons. Maybe not assassin because those daggers take a full blade beckoner, but any of those high weapon decks. So you don't need the garland against specifically. And then finally, this is where, deck lists deviate a little bit. I don't like Opal Scepter, so I'm just playing 3 Spellfray. You do want 1, I will say, because the Blade Beckoner pieces don't do anything against Wizard. Wizard isn't really a class in this format, but you still want some prevention. Most people go for the leg or the tiara. I had both in my deck, and again, I had 1 extra slot, so I just went with the cloak as well. You can go with the gloves instead. That is a choice up to you. I like the cloak because I would rather have the bracers of belief into wizards, because I'm just trying to win the game as fast as possible before they can disrupt me. But sometimes they disrupt you in response to bracers, and you were just like, I wish I just had Garland, so there's 1 turn I could just swing my weapon. And that's perfectly fine. That's fully up to you. I just like the Spellfray cloak. But with all of that, that is going to be the end of the video. I think this one has been pretty long. We're talking about Sage. This isn't rocket science. This isn't CC. This isn't playing some weird combo deck. This is just run them over. Next week, we should be taking a look at Chain. After that, maybe we take a look at Oldhim, because I did say that those are kind of the 3 decks of the format. We'll probably be talking about Sage until something cool for CC comes. Oh, the Arachne Armory deck comes out soon. Maybe we'll talk about the like either Slippy or Marionette once that Arachne Armory deck comes out. But until then, we'll be talking about a bunch of Silver Age stuff. So if you enjoyed, I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, I would appreciate if you liked or subscribed. You don't have to, but I would really appreciate it. If there's any deck you want to see, let me know in the comments, because I'm open to do anything really right now, since, we're waiting on a set. We're on the last 2 months of a set, so there isn't really much to talk about from the most recent main set in Super Slam. We're just talking about a lot of Silver Age, any new Armory decks that come out. But with all that, I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.